I've said it once, I'll say it again. Who would I be? What would this channel be if it weren't for you not only subscribing, which helps keep this channel funded, until February 20th if I don't have 1,000 subscribers, and then I can't make money more, and it really questions how much time I should still making videos if I'm not making money, because I'm a stay-at-home dad and I need to make money somehow, so maybe I should try something else. But the comments, your comments generate new videos. I'm an interesting guy and I can come up with stuff on my own, but man, when you leave a comment, it really makes things that much more relevant. And that's what I want to check out today. In this video, I made a video called, "Is every guy named Nick the same?" And then I talked about how, as I see myself and other Nicks, that we're always scheming and like, hey, come over here, let me show you what I got. You want to be part of this? And yet we're very loyal and we're very protective of who we keep in our circle. We're not just friends with everybody. We don't trust just anybody. But if we do trust you, then we really trust you and we really like you and we expect the same from you. And then I also mentioned that Nicks tend to be slightly ethnic. So Brendan Kennedy commented, and he should have. He said this, quote, "Ethnic is a strange word as an adjective. It could mean pertaining to an ethnic group, which everyone has. It could mean also pertaining to a minority ethnic group among a majority, which is what you mean here. It is confusing to have this dual definition, being so close to one another. It should just be one or the other. Anyone could claim to be ethnic if they choose definition 1, but most people mean definition 2, end quote. Well stated, very, very true. So what I want to point out in this video is, in America, as an American, what does it mean to be slightly ethnic? Because I think most Americans, when they hear that, they make sense of it. They don't have to question it. But just in case there are any question marks floating over anyone's head, I'm making this video to explain what it means to be slightly ethnic as an American. Okay? So in America, while we are very ethnically diverse, there are whole entire states in America where the majority is absolutely of European descent. There's certain states that are just that way. The epitome, I think, would be the state of Vermont, which I tend to forget exists. But yes, Vermont is a state in the United States. I think was the setting of one of Bob Newhart's shows. And I had a roommate in college who was from there. He moved from Kansas to Vermont, and he told me, he said, it's factually the whitest state in the entire nation of the United States. And what he meant by that is the majority of people are of European descent, and there are fewer minorities there than in any other state. Granted, it's a small state to begin with, but still, per capita, ratio-wise, it's the whitest state. Now, using that same way of thinking, America as a whole still points back to that concept that most people are mostly of European descent. Granted, there are exceptions. Obviously, African Americans are a big part of our population and part of our American culture. And last time I checked, African Americans make up somewhere around like 14-15% of the population, which is a pretty high amount. We have Asian population makes up somewhere around 4.5%. I think the Jewish population is somewhere around, is it 2.5-3%, something like that? And then you can say, but Nick, Jewish people are white. Why are you? Well, but they're their own ethnic group, so I'm just making sure, just to kind of put this in proportion. If Europeans are the majority as a whole in America, then that means anyone who's not of European descent by default would be more ethnic than the whole, than the majority. And I think that's pretty easy to follow. So with that being said, let's use me for example. So, in case you're not familiar with the several videos I've done that explain my DNA breakdown, my dad is very European. If you saw his DNA test results, you saw he's 99% Northwestern European. So about a quarter of my dad is German, because our last name is Shell, so we assume it's German. There's definitely French in there as well. And then the rest is pretty much British. So that's my dad. I mean, he's the epitome of when you think of a white American, he's what you would think of. Granted, he married my mom, who is half Mexican and half Italian, and I have to do quotation marks because people want to correct me that there's no such thing as half Mexican. But if you're an American, you easily understand what I mean by that. My great-grandparents were from Mexico. My grandmother was born in America. So she was of Mexican descent. But because of that, my grandma, her DNA, a lot of her DNA was Native American, pointing back to Mayan and Aztec. And that DNA strand, that amount, which in my DNA test shows as 21.6% through MyHeritage, that in itself is the reason that I am slightly ethnic. Now, going on that number, that's greater than a fifth, and it's nearly a quarter, 21.6% of the Native American in Central America, Mayan, Aztec. That makes me slightly ethnic. Now, people see me, they don't know that. People really don't know for sure. Some people have guessed I'm part Asian. Some people assume that I'm Jewish. Some people just generically say Spanish. No one really can know for sure. Most people lead toward Spanish, but they don't exactly know what exactly that means. They're not specific. And as Americans, they're not saying that my family came from the nation of Spain. They're saying, more what they're saying is, you're Hispanic or you're Latino, and there's different definitions of that we could argue all day long too. Because it's confusing here in America. People have different definitions of that, even in certain regions of America, as far as what all that means. Okay? The point is this. The point is to not leave me comments trying to argue what Latino versus Hispanic and Spanish, all that. That's not the point of this video. The point is, the fact that I could even have that conversation and talk about that points to the fact that I am slightly ethnic. They know that I have something else other than European going on in me. Sure, there's the off chance that I could be considered like black Irish, like, you know, Colin Farrell. He's Irish, but then he's got the dark traits. That could be the case, but most people assume that there's a little bit more to me than someone like my dad's DNA. And that is definitely the case. And then, you know, it's funny too, because with my mom being half Mexican her whole life, Americans, as far as how we view Italian people, I think most people agree Italian people are white. Just like most people agree that Jewish people are white. But for Italian people, it'd be one thing if they truly were as Italian as they think they are. But as we've learned from this channel, as we learned from my DNA test and my mom's test, how Italian did my test show? 0. Even my sister, who went through 23andMe, she hardly had any Italian. It was like, what, 2, 3, 4%? And that's coming from a parent who's supposed to be half Italian. And my point is this: if you're Italian, if you're an American of Italian descent, likely there's a good chance it's not the Italian so much that people see in you. It could be the other parts of that Italian mix that we talk so much about. In my mom's case, roughly 15% Sephardic Jewish, and roughly altogether about 14% Middle Eastern that would come through that Italian line. So when we see someone who's Italian, often we're seeing more than just another white person of European descent. We're seeing someone who also might be part Jewish, also might be Middle Eastern. And again, we can generically say, well, Jewish people and Middle Eastern people are white. But we're talking about American perception here. We're not talking about a global perception. We're talking about American perception. Now, put yourself in the position of an American who, say, lives in Tennessee or Alabama, where I'm originally from. Okay? And they find out, they can look at someone and say, oh yeah, they've got something else going on in them beyond what's just in Europe. And when we say Europe, we often mean Northwestern Europe. We're talking basically about, you know, Great Britain, and then we'll throw in France and Germany. And I mean, that's pretty much most people when they talk in America, when they refer to Europe, usually that's what comes to mind for most people. Their mind doesn't go to Spain and Macedonia. They don't travel out that far. They're focused on that. And I think a lot of it is part of an American culture. When we're introduced in movies and TV shows about what Europe is, we're shown the Eiffel Tower. We're shown, you know, the Leaning Tower of Pisa. We're showing all these certain identity markers in Europe, and that's what we tend to think of. And even our food is the same way. Here in America, Italian food is huge. That's a big thing. So even we trace it back to that as well. But as an Italian American, perhaps those traits are that much more obvious that you're something that's slightly ethnic, because you truly are more something beyond even European if you are part Jewish, part Middle Eastern, or part African, because the general consensus also seems to be that if you are Sephardic Jewish, there's a good chance you have some African DNA in there as well, which was my mom's case. It definitely showed up on her, 2% African, and her cousins who have taken the test, they I think show a little bit higher of African descent. So it came through that line, so it makes sense. So the point is this: what does it mean to be an American who's slightly ethnic? It basically means that you're not mostly, and I mean say 95% or more European descent. That's really what it means. Because so many Americans are that, especially where I grew up. So many people, you look around, you see someone who's pretty much just European descent. So when you see a person who's slightly ethnic, like me and even my sister, growing up, people, they didn't make a big deal of it, but they obviously could tell when they see us next to each other that we were slightly ethnic. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you feel enlightened, that there's definitely truth in the idea that as an American, you can be slightly ethnic. And now if you're African American, you're something along the lines of 2/3 to 3/4 of African descent. So that you wouldn't be slightly ethnic in that case. But in the same, and we could even get into how mixed a person is. What if a person is a quarter Japanese? Okay, I'll count that as slightly ethnic. I guess the point is this. Here's what it means to be ethnic. It means that the majority, to be slightly ethnic means that the majority of your DNA is European. And then you've got some other stuff in there that is more than just a little bit of something that's not European. So that's the simple answer. But I feel that it was very important in our journey to talk about all these things, to explore all these things, because I think it's more than just giving a simple answer. This is about understanding our perception of what it means to be an American and have the culture that we have, and to see each other in the light that we see, and knowing that there's people in other parts of the world watching this video so confused, that only reinforces the fact that there's definitely an interesting culture when it comes to ethnicity, diversity, nationality, and what it actually means to identify as an American.